A very good evening to you, Zimbabwe, and this is Studio 7 Live Talk. And of course, it's Friday, September 4th, 2015. My name is Blessing Zulu.
And I'm Gibbs Dube.
And tonight on Live Talk, we are going to talk about calls by the opposition leader, Morgan Tsvangirai, for mass action.
To join the discussion, phone us directly at this number, 001-202-619-2077, and we'll call you back.
Live Talk goes out to Zimbabwe on our 919 medium wave frequency and on the 4930-5940 and 15460 kHz shortwave, Monday through Friday at 8:30 p.m.
And on the internet, you can find us at www.voazimbabwe.com, www.voashona.com, and www.voindebele.com.
Vanhu vemuno muZimbabwe taane chirwere chokuuya pameeting. MDC iri kuitei? MDC iri kuitiitira chii? Ko imi muri kuita chii? Aiwa, let's ngatimboitai frank to each other. Who is MDC? Ndiani munhu ari kudzvanyirirwa? Tisuka. And what are we going to do about it? I asked you up. Ndakabvunza mwafana. Katoni is got two things: action and election. But action is and action.
I think the call by the former Prime Minister Morgan Tsvangirai is noble. It only needs people who are brave. But the issue is that in any country you find that no country will ever become independent without people buying in the ideas of whatever other political parties will be selling. So Zimbabweans should actually unite.
I'm a peaceful demonstration when I think that Zimbabwe. Maningi since abantu apply P permission and I'm born ukuthi ikhona ilizwe lethu ngitanambukela izini eAmerica khona phela ngitanambukela eBritain ngibona ampolice iphuphala labantu abanza ama demonstration and into enginanzela ukuthi izini uTsvangirai isonjalo yena kangena uma demonstrations la abantu abakabangena uma demonstrations la.
Once again, thanks for joining us. You are listening to Studio 7 Live Talk. And tonight on Live Talk, we are talking about calls by opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai for mass action.
Movement for Democratic Change founding president Morgan Tsvangirai in Chutungwiza on Thursday rallied his supporters to take to the streets in protest of what he said was the worsening economic situation in Zimbabwe and to force the government to implement key democratic reforms ahead of the next general elections.
This, though, is not the first time Mr. Tsvangirai has called for mass action. In 2003, he called for what the party called the final push, that his critics claim was not even a final shove. Here's a brief history for starters. In Japan, according to some political analysts, what the MDC wants to embark on is kamikaze or political harakiri, a suicidal attack on the enemy. And of course, the MDC dubbed its 2003 kamikaze strike, like I said earlier on, the final push, a week-long nationwide street protest starting from 2 June to 6 June to push Mugabe out of power. But this is 2015. The question tonight is, what has changed?
If you wish to join the show right now, phone us directly at this number, 001-202-619-2077, and we'll call you back. That number again, 001-202-619-2077. Ye kunjalo kufoini.
Honguka hama dzadiwa nhasi tinoda kuti tinge tichitarisa mashoko emutungamiri webato rinopikisa vaMorgan Tsvangirai ekuti aiwa kuti zvinhu zvichinje muZimbabwe nekuti zvinhu hazvina kumira zvakanaka. Vanhu vanofanira kuti vachiratidzirawo vachitaurira hurumende kuti inofanira kuvandudza zvinhu munyaya dzesarudzo nekuti sarudzo dzose dzaitwa panenge pangori nekuchema kuti sarudzo dzabirirwa uyezve MDC iri kuti nyika kwayananga yaenda kumawere. ZANU-PF haisi kuziva kuti iri kuita sei, asi veZANU-PF nekune rimwe divi vari kuti aiwa hapana kutonga kwavari kukanganisa. Zvese zvingadai zviri kuitika zviri kukonzerwa nezvirango. Gibbs.
Zulukandaba lingalithola njani ye Blessing? Lamhla was a Friday. Kumele sithi cup sikhambe void. Ubona njani? Kumele senze njalo phela. So ke Zulukandaba udaba okhona namhlanje sixoxa ngakhona kokhulunywe Morgan Tsvangirai sikwazi ukuthi umnumzana uTsvangirai wayekhona ngale ke uhulumende yombomba kuthiwa kweni uyombuthano uhulumende lwana ke wagcina ungani waphela masinya sokulandela ukhetho kodwa ke khathesi uthi abantu abatshengisele esitaradini batshengisele sibili bachayitoyitoyi kube nzima kodwa besikhuluma labanye be-ZANU-PF but lokhu akumelanga uhambe njalo nxa abanye bekhuluma njalo abazimele bodwa bathi eZimbabwe ukutshengisela ungakwenza kodwa ungenzakala esitaradini lapha bathi uyagijima uze uqothuka izithende mfowethu so ke sifuna ukuzwa ngani ukuthi kambe lithini ngodaba lukaTsvangirai othi ngenani esitaradini nxa lifuna ukuthi sixoxe khona manje nasi nombolo lifone kanye siyalifonela khona ngapho ithi 001 202 619 2077 ye khona ngapho ke eBaybridge khona ngapho eMount Darwin ye singakhohlwa lani eTsholotsho singakhohlwa kwaBulawayo njalo lemtare ngelani kuhlelo Maswingo ye sesikhona khona apha emcheke kunjalo mfowethu.
Yes, I think Gibbs, we have our first guest, that is Mr. Obet Gutu, the spokesperson for the Movement for Democratic Change, and is also a former senator and former deputy minister for justice. Who else do we have?
We also have Dr. Nkululeko Sibanda, who is a political analyst based at Hartford University in London.
Of course, let's start with you, Mr. Gutu. What has prompted the latest calls for mass action?
Thank you very much, Blessing. Thank you, Gibbs. Thank you, listeners, for giving us this opportunity to be with you tonight. The situation really is Zimbabwe is in a crisis. I think all Zimbabweans, both within the country and in the diaspora, do appreciate that the national crisis is getting out of hand, that each and every day the living conditions of the majority of the people are just getting worse and worse. We know that for the past 2 weeks or so, there is now an unprecedented load shedding schedule from ZESA because Kariba Power Station, as listeners would appreciate, has literally been reduced to half its capacity. We also know that the Hwange Thermal Power Station has most of its units switched off because they are old and they're in need of rehabilitation. And we also have a situation where most companies in the formal sector, be it agro-based companies or manufacturing companies in the industrial areas, both in the major cities of Harare, Bulawayo, Gwelu, Mutare, and even the smaller urban centers like Mashingo, Kadoma, Chegutu, Chinoi, Karoi, etc., they are closing down, or at best, they are downsizing. So we are talking of a situation where everything that can go wrong in Zimbabwe has gone wrong and is going wrong. And when you look at the root cause of this problem, or these problems, it boils down to one major issue, i.e., lack of political legitimacy of the ZANU-PF regime. We easily trace all this suffering back to July 31, 2013, when ZANU-PF controversially, according to them, won the harmonized elections. You realize that from that time up to now, from July 31, 2013 up to the end of August this year, at least 650,000 people have since lost their jobs in the formal sector alone. And if you come back to more recent events, the Supreme Court judgment of July 17, 2015, Friday, July 17, 2015, in the Zuba Petroleum case in Don Nyamande. From that date, that fateful day, Friday, July 17, 2015, up until the time that the Labour Amendment Act was gazetted just a few days ago, no less than 35,000 people had lost their jobs. So, yeah, I can go on and on and on giving statistics. Also, in the past 2 years alone, at least 9,000 companies have liquidated. They've gone out of business. Again, in the past 2 years, at least 9 financial institutions have gone bust. I can go on and on giving statistics. All this points to a situation where Zimbabweans have to agree that we cannot continue on this trajectory and pretend that everything is okay. It is quite clear that we are now off course. It is quite clear that the economy has virtually collapsed. And because of these reasons, we as the MDC, as the country's largest and most popular political party, which believes in democratic change executed in a peaceful way, we are actively encouraging Zimbabweans to say the change that we are looking for as Zimbabweans is not only a change that should come out as a result of activities done by us as the MDC. This is a challenge for all Zimbabweans, be they political activists or non-political activists. So it is against this background that President Morgan Tsvangirai, at his address at Unity L Community Hall in Chitungwiza yesterday afternoon, he was advising the people of Zimbabwe that it is not just a task of the MDC to liberate this country from ZANU-PF rule. It is the duty of each and every patriotic Zimbabwean to make sure that we extricate our country from this debilitating national crisis, which we squarely put on the foot of Robert Mugabe and his ZANU-PF regime.
Well,
so the issue of
Mr. Gutu,
okay.
Yeah, we just want to briefly bring in Dr. Sibanda there. Dr. Sibanda, your response to what Mr. Gutu is saying?
Yes, I mean, it's interesting to hear what Mr. Gutu has to say, and a lot more interesting to have listened to Mr. Tsvangirai yesterday. I mean, there are a few things that catch the eye, and any listener who's paying attention gets to see those things. In his call, Mr. Tsvangirai includes the call for quote-unquote pensioners to strike against the government because the pensions have been paid. And it is very curious as to whether Mr. Tsvangirai is calling for these pensioners to challenge the government simply because he too is now a pensioner. Sounds very selfish. But and I think that Zimbabweans are cleverer than that. I think Zimbabweans read beyond that. I think that there are three things that the MDC, led by Mr. Tsvangirai, has to realize. It is that they must take some time and read at least some book in politics, Politics 101 or Politics 100, the very basic principle of politics. Political parties do not call for mass action, because if they do call for mass action, the sitting government has every right to bastardize and to do what they can with the people that go out for mass action on the basis of a call by a political party, because there is a legitimate reason for the government to say that a political party is trying to get into power using extraordinary means. We have always advised Morgan Tsvangirai that that is not how you carry out mass action anywhere on earth, anywhere in the world. You do not have an opposition political party that is waiting for a chance to get into government, calling for mass action, because then there is every reason for a government such as that of President Mugabe to kill and maim as many people as possible. I don't know how many people Morgan Tsvangirai wants dead before he can become president of the country, because he does extraordinary things that are obviously going to lead to massive massacre, massive deaths, and end with him in prison if he's not careful. After a lot of people have been killed, if they hit his call is dangerous, reckless, and not worthy of anybody who wants to become president of the country or is worth being called a leader. But in any case, there's so many holes in the reasonings that are being provided for mass action. For example, Mr. Gutu says that because Wangadame is half empty. Okay, Mugabe is a rainmaker now. It just doesn't make sense. He says that workers have been kicked out of work. Does he forget that Chamisa was involved in this whole thing? And even if it wasn't, more Zimbabweans were already out of work before then. Is he just taking a chance, or was he not concerned about the Zimbabweans who have not been in work for the last 10 years? These reasonings show anybody who's serious about this that Morgan Tsvangirai is simply taking opportunities and acts as if Zimbabweans owe him the presidency of the country.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Let's hear what our listeners have to say. Tina Mkoma Labos, Komtare Magadi. Mkoma Labos?
Yes, munofara renkoma jenga.
Ndimkoma Blessing, ndinofara hangu zviri sei?
Zviri right, kuri seko kwandiri kuno kwamutare kuri kunaya.
Kuri kunaya kanyiyo?
Zviri right.
Tipewo pfungwa dzenyu nemashoko ari kutaurwa navatsvangirai.
Koma Blessing, ndaida kutanga kubvunza vaguti kuti ZANU-PF inoti isusu tinoda kuti vatsvangirai vauye tiite dialogue kutaura nezviri kunetsa nezvavanofunga se-opposition party rather than kuita mass action.
ZANU yakataura izvozvo rini Mkoma Labos?
Mati
vakazvitaura rini izvo?
Wamangwana ndivo vakadaro musi vanga vari padialogue nene vachiti Tsvangirai ngaauye adiscuss zvanofunga kuti nyika ite move forward toita sei. But handizivi kuti vaguti vane rumu here yavakapiwa kana kuti flow yavakapiwa yekuti uyai titaure kuti nyika ite ipfuurire mberi toita sei, kana kuti pangori paredhiyo chete pavanongotaura vasingapiwe that flow.
Vagutu hatingakumire iripo.
Ndinotenda chaizvo naMngoma vabvunza mubvunzo wakanaka uyu. Chiripo ndechekuti zvakataurwa navamangwana ndofunga ndakanzwa vachitaura painterview, ndofunga kana singakanganisi ndofunga ndine zuro vachitaura ivo pamhepo pastudio 7 kuti kana veMDC vane maideas avainavo ngavauye nawo kuhurumende. Asi ndoda kuti vateereri vanzwisise kuti isu sebato reMDC hatisati tambokokwa kana zuva rimwe chete zvaro nehurumende yavaMugabe kuti veduwe uyaiwo tionesane, tigare pasi sevana veZimbabwe tione kuti matambudziko atakatarisana nawo senyika tingamagadzirisa sei, tingavandudza nyaya yeikonomi yenyika sei. Izvi hazvisati zvamboitika. Kune vanoteerera studio 7 ndinoziva chinoteererwa zvakanyanya zuva nezuva muno muZimbabwe nekune dzimwe nyika dziri muno muAfrica even beyond. Vanoziva kuti vaMugabe vari on record vachibuda vachitsoropodza MDC, vachitukirira MDC, kunyanya mutungamiriri wayo Morgan Tsvangirai. Ndinorangarira kuti pamazuva mashoma apfuura pakaitwa commemoration yeHeroes Day yegore rinei ra2015 vakanatsobuda pachenazve vakataura kuti isu MDC hatina basa nemhandu. Vakatoshandisa nzwiro kuti mhandu, muchirungu vakashandisazve nzwiro kuti masela hatimade pano, vachienderera mberi. Saka vanogara vachitaura ivo vaMugabe kuti takahwina election zvino mutsindo seZANU-PF, saka tichatonga, hatina basa retinaro rokuti tingasoroterera zvaTsvangirai kana zveMDC yaanotungamirira. Saka isu tinoti seMDC ZANU zvainoti yakahwina, zvainoti iri kutonga ngairambe ichitonga hayozve. Isu tinotiwo seMDC matanho atinoda kutora awa haasiri ehubhanditi kuti ndiedze kuti nditsanangure zvavitaurwa naComrade ava the academic kuti zvavari kutaura ivo kuti tichakonzeresa kufa kwevanhu nezvimwe zvakadaro kwete nokuti hatisi kuti tiri kuenda kunoita hondo, hatisi kuti tiri kuenda kunorwisana neZANU-PF. In English, I would say we are not going to take up arms of war against the ZANU-PF government. The MDC is a peaceful, democratic political party, and one of our main, if not major, guiding tenets is to never, ever resort to any violent and unconstitutional means of getting into power. By mass action, we are simply saying toda kuti vanhu vataridzire bumbiro romutemo weZimbabwe rinotipa kodzero yokuti vanhu vaende mumastreet vachidemonstrata kuti tayaura, tatambura, toda kuti hurumende iripo izvione kuti yakoniwa. Hakusi kushedzera hondoba. Zvinobvumidzwa pamutemo wenyika weconstitution, zvinobvumidzwa nebumbiro renyika reconstitution of Zimbabwe. Saka handioni kuti munhu angasungirwa chii kuti aita zvinhu zvaanobvumirwa kuti angava achikwanisa kuita zvepamutemo.
Tinotenda. Mukoma Labos, ndofunga mapinduro.
Ya, ichokwadi ndazvikisa.
Tinotenda zvikuru. Regai titore mumwe muteereri.
Okay, thank you, bye.
Gibbs.
Yes, sesixoxela umnumzana Mncube ose-South Africa. Baba Ncube, ungatshona njani?
Ngiyaphila kunjani baba?
Hayi siphilile. Ncube, unjani khonapho kodwa?
Hayi kungcono nyana.
Ungathini ngokukhulunywa uMorgan Tsvangirai?
Mina ngendlela akhuluma ngakhona ngikubona kuyindlela enhle. Ngicabanga ukuthi abantu baseZimbabwe bevele bekulindele since ngendlela engabona ngakhona since 2008. Vele abantu bayefuna ukuthi batshengisele ngendlela udubo olukhona la isiphatho abaphethe ngaso nje kuhulumende lo esinayo. So manje yabona ukuthi abantu baloko emisa ukuthi angayenzi mass action because ukhoza i-violence, but okusala abantu bayahlupheka baya phambili, yabo. Kuzophetha ngani labo kufanele kustophe khona ukuthi abantu bayekele ukuhlukunyezwa, bayekele ukubotshwa, bayekele ukunyamalala, kube lo mbuso okhululekile, abantu bakhulume i-democracy abayithandayo. Kuzoba khona nini lokho ma kungafuneki ukuthi abantu baphakame? Mina ngibona enze into enhle kakhulu, isimemezelo sakhe sihle kakhulu ukuthi abantu asisukumeni sonkeni sibambisana. Amaqembu aphikisayo, ama-non organizations, sibambisane silweni nesingakuthandiyo ezweni lethu, lathi sike sikhululeke sihlale sikwazi ukuhlala emazweni akithi.
Kodwa-ke nxa abantu bangangena ezitaladini Baba Ncube awusoze belimale yini?
Ukulimala kungenzeka ukuthi balimale, kodwa ngendlela osokungakhona angicabanga ukuthi umuntu ocabanga kahle angacabanga ukuthi elimaze abantu ngendlela ukuthi balwela ilungelo labo ukuthi bakhululeke ezweni. Ya, kufanele ukuthi abantu babone ukuthi even mina ngendlela engibona ngakhona i-SADC yiyo eyenza ukuthi kube nento efana nale, ngoba ba-accepta ukuthi kuma African countries kube nama-president angafuni ukuphuma ezikhundleni, yabo. Kube nembuso encindezela abantu. Ikanti akufanelanga ukuthi ba-accept izinto ezifana nalezi, kufanele balwe nezinto ezifana nalezo.
Sawuza kakhulu-ke mnumzana Ncube
emazweni onke sikwazi ukuthi abantu bahlale ezweni labo bangahluphi, kungabi nama-xenophobia kwamanye amazwe akhozwa yini ukungahlali kwabantu emazweni abo.
Ubone-ke siyakuzwa kakhulu, siyabonga kakhulu Ncube, uphenduke phela ungasikhohlwa.
Yebo baba, ngiyabona.
Yes, ukhonapho ukuthi uDr. Sibanda uzathini ngakhona okukhulumileyo ekufaka ngesintu. So what he's saying is that he commends what Mr. Tsvangirai is saying, and you know this has been going since 2008. People have been demanding this kind of action. So because people are suffering, and he says protests are the only way to go. And he further made a point here. He says, you know, SADC is actually causing some of these problems in Zimbabwe because it is protecting some people in the region who are detectors. So I wanted Sibanda just to quickly respond. Ngesindebele Baba Sibanda umzwile lapho Ncube.
Ngiyamuzwa kuNcube. Ngiyabona njalo ukuthi kumahlabezulu kwabanye abanengi kungabe kukhangelele ukuthi hayi isimemezelo sikaTsvangirai lesimqoka udubo lulapha nxa ungumuntu oke wahlala kwele Zimbabwe kusukela ngabo 1997 kuze kufike abo 2008 nxa wawukhona kusenzakala ikutshengisela kwezisebenzi ngo97 nxa ubukhona kusenzakala imas ebithiwa i-final push eyabizwa nguMorgan Tsvangirai ngo2002 uyakwazi ukuthi uMgabe akalani lokuthi kuthiwa thina sizatshengisela ngokuthula ngoba phela liyabe selifuqa ukuthi yena aphume esikhundleni uzatshaya abantu njalo uzalimaza abantu ngendlela ephakemeyo siyakwazi lokho sikubonile kusenzakala ngenkathi ezitshiyeneyo elizweni leZimbabwe uTsvangirai esikhuluma ngaye nalo labo maduku bake bachaya besuka emhlanganweni bengabizanga le ma-section ngakho ke lokho kuchiwo iMDC eka Mr Tsvangirai ukuthi hayi thina sizatshengisela ngokuthula ngibone ngani bayazikhohlisa kumbe bakhohlisa abantu kumbe nje badlala ngesikhathi ngoba sikwazi ukuthi abantu bahlala bechayiwe abantu bayafa nxa kuthe wabizwa emhlangano njengaleyi iwoza ihlali labo mama babethwele imthanyelo abachaywa izanu ama-students eZimbabwe nxa etshengisela kungaze kube lokuthula okungakanani acha kube nzima kube nje angiboni mina ukuthi nxa kuthiwa abantu abangene ezitreetini balisane lo uhulumende kaMgabe kungani iMDC kaTsvangirai icabanga ukuthi namhlanje umthetho usuqhakathekiswa kakhulu kuMgabe ngibonani uMgabe indaba yomthetho le akanandaba layo nje ifaka eceleni yikho phela abantu besithi waziwa kuma election kodwa anti president namhlanje.
Yes, Dr. Spanda, so he's saying that the MDC was embarked on that financial push, and the financial push just disappeared. And says there are fears really that people may be brutalized if they engage in such action. Says WOZA students are always beaten up, and what will happen if then members of the public just go onto the streets?
We have Adon on the line. Adon, good evening.
How are you?
We are doing great. Your thoughts on the issue of mass action?
Yes, Koma blessing issue yema demonstrations against this government in India. I think that is a form of wasting our time, guys. There is no need for us to demonstrate without anything in our hands. We need to demonstrate against this government with tangible and meaningful policies in our hands. MDC is talking about to demonstrate against them. Since 1999, MDC was demonstrating against Zambia, but nothing brought to the people's table through my demonstrations in UII. Look, suffering, yes, people are immensely suffering in Zimbabwe, and the cause is not only Mugabe. And continuous blaming on Mugabe is causing us to forget about the crucial steps to be taken for us to have change. We are creating challenges instead of creating change in Zimbabwe because of poor decisions, poor policies. What Tsvangirai has in his hands, or what policies are now to challenge these policies already on the ground by Mugabe? Nothing. We are very successful. I always say about that. We are very successful, but very insignificant. Zimbabweans, we are very educated fools. We can't just to come up with policies that will bring change in our country.
But I think Zimbabwe, they've got many blueprints. I beg to differ there. You can't say there's a lack of policy, but maybe implementation. But please stay on the line. We'll be back with you, Dr. Spanda. And Mr. Gutu, please do stay on the line. And of course, for our radio listeners, unfortunately, it ends here. But the good news is we are streaming live. So go to www.voazimbabwe.com and press on LiveTalk. This is Blessing Zulu.
And I'm Cubes Dube saying stay tuned.
For those of you who are just joining us, good evening, and this is Studio 7 Live Talk. And tonight on Live Talk, we are talking about calls by opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai for mass action. I'm Blessing Zulu.
And I'm Gibbs Dube saying if you wish to join the show right now, phone us directly at this number 001-202-619-2077 and we'll call you back. That number again 001-202-619-2077. Ye kula masanda usikhuma zulukandaba namhlanje ke sikhuluma ngodaba lolu olukhulunywe ngumnumzana uMorgan Tsvangirai uthi abantu kumele batshengisele ezitaladini bekhonona ngokwenzakala elizweni. Uthi umnotho sikhuluma nje ukayazana uyawasibilo kumangalisayo ngakho abantu bayahlupheka. Nxa behlupheka kunje uthi ngcono bangeneke ezitaladini. Nxa lifuna ukuthi lingene kuhlelo khona manje nasi inombolo lifona kanye salifona khona ngapho 001-202-619-2077. Yeah,
let's go back to our with the caller, Adon, who was saying that Zimbabwe is not coming up with policies. And I was saying, I beg to differ. There are brilliant policies, documents that have been written, on the economic policy. Many documents have been written. Now the Zim asset. Is the problem not implementation?
Yes. Blessing. I really understand that ideas are nothing without progress into implementation. But now, what I'm urging this opposition part led by Morgan Tsvangirai is they need to demonstrate against ZANU-PF. Nema policies and all the change, not my challenges in Zimbabwe. He was demonstrating against ZANU-PF. Nema sanctions, economic sanctions. You see, Zimbabwe is replete with citizens struggling under the weight of these sanctions, but they brought nothing. Their agenda is unattainable. Regime change cannot be attained by these sanctions or demonstrations or whatever. What they need, these guys, they need regime change, not change of policies or change of what. They need Mugabe and his people out of power. We need these guys to oust this old president constitutionally. That it has something not to demonstrating. I know that she demonstrating that it was.
Mr. Good.
Ndiri kuteerera zviri kutaurwa nakomrade awo ndiri kunzwa kunakidzwa chaizvo nezvavari kutaura. Ndoda kuti vazive comrade kuti nyaya yemademonstration inyaya inotobvumidzwa pabumbiro romutemo. Ndinofunga comrade vanoziva kuti muna May 2013 more than 90% yevanhu vakavhota pareferendum vakaita accept, in fact, the referendum yakaitwa muna February 2013. yaitwa more than 90% of the people actually voted yes for the adoption of the new constitution. New constitution ichibva yaita come into effect muna May 2013. Zvichireva izvo kuti tikatsoropodza bumbiro romutemo iroro rinotaridza kuti kune inonzi freedom of expression, freedom of association, even the right to demonstrate yakatonatsotkwenenzverwa ikanyorwa zviri pachena. Saka kana vachiti ivo demonstration haifanirwi kuita haibatsire chinhu, handizive kuti vanoda kuti tiite kunge tiri munyika dzinodzvanyirere dzakaita sana North Korea kana dzimwe nyika dzakaita saidzodzo. Isu tiri kuti seMDC, the right to demonstrate is a constitutional right. Ndoda kuti comrade vanzwisise zvekuti demonstration hazvirevi kuti kuita zveugandanga, kuita zvemusindo. Vanhu vazhinji vanofunga kuti vakaita demonstration zvinoreva kuti marwisa hurumende. Hazvindishamisi nokuti culture yemuno muZimbabwe iculture yekuti vanhu vanotya hurumende nokuti tine hurumende yeudzvanyiriri isingadi kunzwa hwi rokuti demonstration. Nokuti kuhurumende yaRobert Mugabe hwi rokuti demonstration rinotyisa. Vanoziva kuti demonstration inoreva kuti vanhu vachataridza kushatirwa kwavo nokudzvanyirirwa kwavari kuita. Ndosaka tichiona kuti all dictatorships the world over, they clamp down on all demonstrations, even if they are peaceful. That is a historical fact. And I think my brother, Dr. Tsvangirai, the academic, will agree with me on that one. That dictatorships have got a very, very low appetite for tolerance. And in fact, they do not tolerate demonstrations, even if they are peaceful. That's a fact. Saka isu tiri kuti vanhu vachidemonstrata vanenge vachidemonstrata peacefully. Vanhu vakafamba mustreet vakabata maplacards vachiti tatambura tayaura haisi mhosva. Iyo nyaya yavataura comrade yemasanctions it's a tired story. Zveshuwa vana veZimbabwe tine masanctions. Masanctions aripo ndo atakapuwa naRobert Mugabe nehurumende yake yeZANU. Masanctions eudzvanyiriri, masanctions ecorruption, masanctions eumbavha, masanctions eunhubu. Masanctions iwawo atonesa moto. Shuwa ariko.
Mkoma Adon, your last point.
I fully support this speaker. Demonstrations and demonstrations. I wholly support them to do demonstrations against our government. Yes, but what I'm insisting is they need to demonstrate with something in their hands. Not just demonstrate against the government. What are you promising? The MDC, since 1999, it was only promising us hopes and dreams, nothing tangible, no practical realities on our hands. Only hopes and dreams.
Ndiedze kuvapindura futi comrade ava kuti ndine Honorable Blessing kuti pamwe kuda vanenge vasingatereri zvimwe zvatinoita nokuverenga magwaro atinobudisa nokuti chinonetsa ndechekuti muno muZimbabwe media yemuno haitauri nezvinoitwa namamapato. Ndofunga munhu wese anoziva kuti policy document yokutanga chaiya pakafomewa MDC ichiita go back to the formation of the MDC September 1999 at the Women's Bedroom muno muHarare. Pakaita policy document ndo yakatanga kutaura zvanga zviri very clear and unambiguous panyaya yokuti vanhu vazhinji veZimbabwe vari kuda minda asi havana kupiwa minda nokuti from 1980 tichiwana independence hurumende yava Mugabe yakaita a very slow pace yeland reform. Okay, tinoziva kuti between 1980 and 1990 papane atinotiwo an entrenched clause muconstitution yekulangasa yairatidza hurumende kuti itore minda, asi minda mishoma iyoyo yakatorwa between 1980 and 1990. Tikaongorora tinoona kuti minda yakatorwa ikapuwa mashefu eZANU, haina kupiwa vanhu vaitambura vari kumaruzevha kwakawanda vanhu vanga vane nhamo yeminda. Chakatanga ndechekuti vanhu vakatanga kuwana minda mashefu ndokukanganwa povo. Policy document yeMDC ya1999 yakazvibudisa izvozvo. Tichiuya futi kune document redu agenda for real transformation, touya futi nedocument redu rejuice. Zvose izvo zvakakwenenzverwa zvokuti comrade ava kana vakazviverenga vachikwanisa kuverenga vanoona kuti mapolicies edu eMDC anodakadza, anomwisa mvura. Saka kana vachiti tinongoda mademonstration tisina maalternative policies, iyo ndo propaganda. Ndoona kuti vanonyanyoterera nhema dzinotaurwa neZBC
tinotenda gentlemen. Tine vamwe vanga vatigarise parunhare. Tinotenda zvikuru mukoma Adon. Gibbs.
Yes.
Tinotenda mukoma Adon. Gibbs.
Yes, lo mnumzana ke Isaac Mpofu secingweni lapho South Africa. Baba Mpofu, ungaunjani? Hayi siphile kakhulu, kunjani khona lapha eGoli?
Hayi Goli sinethwa izulu.
Yes, sizokuthiwa liyachasa lokuzwa. Ye, ungathini kodwa wena?
Hayi nami ngifuna ukugcwalisa. Uyabona into ekhulu ekhaya sibe kuseplant. Nami ngifuna ukugcwalisa wena mfowethu ukuthi into ekhulunywa ngubaba uTsvangirai yiqiniso. Ukuthi enye into abantu bakithi sesiyesaba isikhumba sithi isilwane sithi lokho sikhona. Uyabona singabe lokho siyesaba vela yikho into kufanele ukuthi abantu ngasingena emgwaqweni sitoyitoya bona laba abakhulu oTsvangirai abaphezulu baye kuyo bethi indoda uyabona ukuthi abantu sebenza babona ukuthi kuyashota lapha lana ngoba khona manje ungabheka wena Dube from kuvotiwe ngo-2013 kufike manje nalinyanga engithiyo manje September ungani kule 5 years abantu behlupheka yabona. So into yonke yena lefuna nje abantu sisukumele singabe le ndaba ukuthi izano vele iyabulala izano iyenzani kumbe ongcono ibulale thina angithi abantu abazobe semgwaqweni babe ngabulali babe bonisa ukuthi no madoda la sithi asihlaleni phansi umnotho ulunge ube right abanye omunye lomunye umuntu asebenze abantwana besikolo bayaqeda izikolo akula lapha bayakhona ngokwesaba khona ukuthi silobe sithi siyesaba ubaba umngane wabulala ngesikhathi sakhe khona manje ugugile ngumdala ikhehla ngokhulu wethu ungahlala la phansi kahle abantu bekhuluma kahle uyozwisisa nanku khona manje usekwanisa ukuya phetsheya ebantwini base-Europe ecela usizo lokuthi madoda ngizolungisa imithetho eminye ebiwomile ngifuna ukuthi libuye elizweni lizolu uyabona naye ukuthi ilizwe lifuna ukulungiswa
kodwa-ke bangangena esitaradini phela bayadutshulwa phela kumbe ukutshaywa sibila kuzwayo awubona kuyaba kunjalo
no ukutshaywa singatshaywa Dube kodwa kanginyali kodwa mara masingasukuma ngempela sithi noma usibulala mdala thina silandelo asilandanga impi kungala muntu othwele into eyingozi angiboni ukuthi singatshaywa okuyaphi wena mfowethu ubaza bona labantu bezano yikuthi bamesaba bayesaba ukukhuluma iqiniso bayakwazi abantu bezana ukuthi ilizwe lana selilibi bayakwazi ukuthi ibholoho elivalile ukuthi ilizwe lingabe right yini uyabona baningi bayakwazi komlowo silabula amadoda amaningi siyasikhulume ngudlu basitshela ukuthi no madoda phela lapha kunje nathi sisaba ukuthi lapha umdala lo kungaba kanje siyaphelelwa ikudla uyabona bayikhuluma iqiniso
hayi siyakuzwa kakhulu ke nomzana Mpofu qedisa baba so uqedile siyabonga kakhulu Mpofu. So according to Mpofu, to Mr. Mpofu, he says people are suffering a lot. If you compare 2013 and 2014, you think that people have been suffering for years. He says from 2013 things have been going the wrong way, and this is what he says. He also says people should actually stage what he calls peaceful demonstrations. He says if you are not armed, you just go onto the streets and protest, things may work out very well. And he indicates that some people in ZANU-PF are actually backing some of these things. I think maybe Sibanda has got an answer for that.
Yeah, we should ask him, Dr. Sibanda, because, the problem is that people are already dying of starvation. The statistics, for example, from the WFP are not looking good. They are saying... like 56% of children between the ages of 6 months to 5 years have what they are calling a stunted growth, and there is hunger. There are all these problems. What is the way forward?
I think that one of the most important things is that, as Mr. Guti said at the beginning of the discussion of the program, that one of the things that you need is a resolution of some form of political crisis. And I think that the biggest political crisis in the country is certainly not the NASA, not the pensions program, as Mr. Tsvangirai would rather have us believe because he's now a pensioner. But it's certainly a question of leadership on the important issues, on political issues, especially. And I think that if we resolve that problem, and I can give a quick suggestion here of policy, since the listeners have also been talking a bit about policy and alternatives to ZANU-PF. A good policy that the MDC could roll out today that would help show the people that they are well-meaning, that they are good-willing for the people of Zimbabwe, is that the former Prime Minister, Mr. Morgan Tsvangirai, could take just the one of the 2 million that he got from the state corruptly and donate it to World Food Program or ORAP or something like that, and say, look, buy maize meal and feed the people of Zimbabwe who are starving, and meanwhile the people of Zimbabwe are going to demand certain democratic rights from the government of Zimbabwe. That would be a goodwill. That would show the people of Zimbabwe that Morgan Tsvangirai is practical, is willing to do what it takes to move the nation forward, is not only about getting his pension paid, and is not only about getting into power. I think that this is going to be a sea change in terms of showing Zimbabweans not only that he has leadership, but also that what he failed to do while he was in government, which was to fight corruption, he's willing to begin to fight it from the outside, firstly by paying $1 million that he owes and stole from the people of Zimbabwe, just as ZANU-PF ministers have done. Now, I think that we'll be moving in the right direction. It is very disheartening to hear Mr. Gutu, and I think that the media, yourselves guys, are partly implicated in this. You're giving Mr. Gutu an easy ride. He was flip-flopping right now. He talks about, he gives North Korea as an example of a corrupt country and sort of assumes that Zimbabwe is democratic and therefore we're allowed to demonstrate. It's not true. Zimbabwe is just like North Korea, if not worse. And for him to give North Korea as a dictatorship as if Zimbabwe wasn't is just a travesty. And finally, one thing that I think we must always remember is that the Zimbabwe constitution that Morgan Tsvangirai gave to us, together with ZANU-PF in the last 5 years, is one of the most undemocratic governments to be given to any country and any people by political leaders in the last 50 years. It is a document that doesn't allow not just the people of Zimbabwe the right to demonstrate because it takes it the other way. It doesn't allow the Zimbabwean parliament to be sovereign as a house that represents the people of Zimbabwe. Parliamentarians in Zimbabwe are required to pay allegiance to their political parties and therefore the leaders of political parties instead of paying allegiance to the voters that vote for them. This is what Morgan Tsvangirai has given us, and I think one of your callers is right. We cannot go into demonstrations, put our lives in danger for such things as the ones that Morgan Tsvangirai has given us in the last 8 years alone, because we know that we end up with an egg on our face.
Mr. Gutu, you can respond before we take our callers.
I think Dr. Svanda really, with due respect, is misleading the listeners. The position is very clear that Morgan Tsvangirai did not steal any money from anyone. So for an honest person like Dr. Svanda to come on air and say that he should use the $1 million that he stole and donate it to WFP, I think with due respect, he should withdraw that statement. It's not only false, it's also highly defamatory because he knows that what he's saying is not the truth. If anything, the people who are stealing, the people who stole, and the people who are on record as having run down the economy in this country are ZANU-PF functionaries. And Mugabe himself is right at the very top. Him and his close associates. It is quite clear that there is empirical evidence to show that they are corrupt. There is empirical evidence to show that they've run down the economy. Only a day or two ago, the resident minister from Mashonaland Central Province, Martin Dina, was arraigned before the court at Bindura on allegations of having, corruptly used his office to extort some $60,000 from a white farmer as some kind of protection fee. And there is evidence that money were deposited into his bank account and moved from this account to that account, which evidence is really, one doesn't have to be a lawyer to appreciate that the evidence is so damaging and is so strong that it's so clear that the ZANU-PF resident minister for Mashonaland Central obviously did something very corrupt. And we are saying there are several of these instances of corruption. Robert Mugabe himself has been on the record to say that his ministers are very corrupt. He has been on record to say that his ministers are very corrupt. And he has actually threatened to take action against them. But he hasn't taken any action, unsurprisingly. So, going forward, we are saying that as the MDC, the corruption that is there in this country is actually mothered and fathered by ZANU-PF. And that at the end of the day, it is ZANU-PF that is in power, so it is ZANU-PF that is answerable for the collapse of the economy.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. I think the right word to use is alleged. If anyone has not been taken to court or convicted, that's what we go by in the media. But anyway, thank you. We just want to quickly take the callers that we have. Let's start with Jacob Lawrence. Makadim Koma Jacob.
Yes, I'm good, and you?
Fine. Your thoughts on the issue of mass action?
Yeah, I saw in news, right? One I want to first talk about here, and I want to make it clear to the Zimbabweans that a revolution is normally led by revolutionaries, right? I get it right. Revolution is normally led by revolutionaries. And Mr. Tsvangirai himself is not a revolutionary. So he mustn't talk about Zimbabwe revolting against the government. He himself is staying in government house. He is also married to ZANU-PF wife.
Mkoma Jacob, this is not a platform to attack any individual. We want to talk about facts. The issue about is about mass action. Is it constitutional? Is it not? I mean, Tsvangirai married a Zimbabwe. It doesn't matter who you marry. We really don't want anyone to bring children or wives of politicians and stuff like that. I think it's something that we really don't tolerate. Let's talk about real issues about mass action. It's not about personalities. Let's make that very clear.
Okay, thank you very much. I can support his idea on mass action. Indeed, Zimbabweans are supposed to wake up and see the evil deeds being done to them by the ZANU-PF government. For the past 35 years, the government of Zimbabwe or the government of ZANU-PF failed to attend to people's needs. This has been the years of terror, years of fear, dictatorship, suffering, nepotism, unemployment, hunger, and struggle. So indeed, we really have to open up our eyes and revolt against this evil.
Mkoma Jacob, again, the word revolt against the government, I don't think it's what we are talking about. It's just, if I'm getting it correctly, it's a protest, mass action, something that is constitutional, not to overthrow the government. We don't want to agitate for anyone to overthrow the government. I don't know if I'm wrong, Gibbs.
I think overthrowing and revolting are two different things, because revolting is sort of like saying, okay, using guns and other things, So maybe it's a question of semantics, but
I don't know.
I guess something should be said in a politer way.
Yeah, Mkoma Jacob, we really are not pushing for like an open revolt or but if people are talking about mass action, peaceful protests, I think that's what we can discuss. But if they were calling for a revolt or, like a rebel outfit, I don't think we're even going to entertain them.
Yeah, okay, I understand. But you know what, the problem is that Zimbabweans, right, I am a youth as I'm speaking right now, and I'm really happy about what the government is doing to the Zimbabweans. And I'm glad with what happened in Libya. They revolted, that's the revolution I'm talking about. We need the same thing to happen again in Zimbabwe, because the government of Zimbabwe failed Zimbabwe for the past 35 years.
But someone would ask, Mkoma Jacob, someone would tell you that in Libya it's now even worse.
Yeah, they can say it's not even worse, but I guess if we're going to revolt against this government, if we're going to stand up against Mr. Mugabe's government, something is going to happen which is going to serve Zimbabwe level. Because right now, right now, in some Mugabe is something that he always kept my students in universities each and every year. But at the end, they end up going to South Africa, yet to develop our country. So I think it's the time for Zimbabwe to see and because the issue of corruption, the issue of terror, even the violence that came in 2008, that was the bad work of ZANU-PF.
Again, Mkoma Jacob, those are allegations at it. But anyway, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And just to reiterate, I think normally, if we are talking about politics, it's not good even to bring Mr. Mugabe's children if they have not done anything, they are
That's
not
right.
like
That's
public figures. We should focus on the father, you should focus on Mr. Tsvangirai, Mr. Biti, but don't try to bring in his family or wife if they are not politicians. If they are politicians, it's a different ballgame altogether. But of course, we need to respect all of them again.
Yes, of course. And if you're a politician, you can be on the firing line anytime,
Exactly.
Yeah. So now we've got messages on, before I take Mr. Kotloyo, we've got messages on Facebook. One of them is from Promise, who says, I agree with Mr. Tsvangirai, we need action. Then I've got Chipo or Chichi Nyoni, who says, yes, please bring the action right now. We're waiting for it. Then Kiptu Nyoni writes, Zimbabwe's situation is like a smoldering fire. We only need just a small spark to set it alight. Then somebody like, his name is Foster. Foster says, ZANU-PF is dead and out. And then we've got Elias, who says, true, Zimbabwe is clearly a failed nation. We need action. People need food on their table. And Peter says, ZANU-PF has failed. Then I've got another message from Mokwena Daniels, who says, ZANU-PF has failed, yes. And the only way to remove it is by voting it out of power in 2018. So how can ZANU-PF be removed when MTC is so divided into small pieces of opposition parties? That's a question mark, right? All these MTC pieces must unite and form a strong coalition in order to unseat ZANU-PF. So that is his opinion there. So now it reminds me of an article that I read, a Blessing in the Herald, where there were some MTC letters that were exposed, and it showed that there's a lot of division in the party. So I don't know, maybe Mr. Kutu will respond to that. So let's take a caller first before we go to that. Slow Baba Kodloyo, kunjani?
Yebo baba.
Yeah, posela ko baba.
Yabona ukuthi lapha Gibbs. Into le mass action le kunywa ngayo ngitswangirai ngiyayizwa sibili kangizwa. Uyabona i-mass action Gibbs kayidingi uku-organize. Hayi. Into le izakuba spontaneous ngake ngatsho kuqala ngathi konkona iyachwatha. Isibile kuhle. Yekele ichwathi nje so bangayidisturb ningafaka umlilo omningi izachisa. Ngoba i-mass action into ezakwenzakala nge-mass action yingozi leyo. Bazayintshintsha i-mass action yona leyo abasupporta i-government ekhona. Kube sekuthiwa kade befuna ukuchaya ikhu kade be-revolte i-government kade kusenziwa lokhu lalokhu upha abantu. Kodwa-ke ekunyoko lesikwazi ukuthi i-mass action yona le ingazibe khona. Ichoni i-mass action. I-mass action isho ukuthi khona isidi engathi imbewu ye-freedom. Ivele Gibbs ayithelelwa ngamanzi. Ithelela ngegazi yomuntu elikabani elami lawe. Izavela khonapha khathesi sibila khathesi sichwatha Gibbs uniwe nje 6 months khonapha. Isichwatha kuhle khathesi limbiza le. Ayisadingi ukuthi ikhwezelwe, ayisadingi ukuthi ithini, isichwathela yodwa. Ngoba namba amadoda laba abanye badonsa beyala abanye badonsa beyala but liyezilanga lakhona. Kule ngoma abayisabala amaKristu bathi kweminye ilanga uzawuphendula lo mbuzo. Isikhathi sokuphendula lo mbuzo nalo.
Yes,
okunye futhi okumele kunanzelele bathi becampaign bathi bazanika abantu 2 million jobs. But 2 million jobs lay like njengama politicians laba abapolitiki phela ngala babe ngapolitiki lapha